pals and non-binary pals, and welcome back to another episode of our podcast. I'm Sav.
I'm Cat.
Every time.
Every time. And today we're talking about things that we're pissed off at the moment.
Specifically about Trump.
Yes.
As someone pointed out to me yesterday, there are a billion things we hate about him, and which is why he's a billionaire. He has $1 for everything we hate about him.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's just, every single time I think about him, every time he does something new, it's like, people go, oh, I'm so surprised he did that. But then it's like every single time he does something new.
I'm just not surprised anymore. I'm disappointed, but not surprised. The thing that gets me the most is like, the thing that gets me the most is that there are Trump supporters who say that he supports the LGBT community. And I'm just, are you dumb?
He, at one point, in front of a huge bunch of cameras, held up an LGBT flag, which means he supports the LGBT community, because that's how that works.
Despite, very recently, him and his team going to the Supreme Court and saying, we should be able to stop LGBTQI plus people from adopting children.
Just undoing years and years of work.
It's so
progress.
stupid. Like, okay, so Trump and his supporters and his team or whatever are anti-abortion. They're also anti-contraception, and it's not seen as healthcare. And they're also anti, like, proper sex education. They want to teach abstinence only. And then also wanting to stop a large group of people who want to adopt from adopting.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Abstinence-only sex education leads to higher levels of teen pregnancy. This has been proven. Cutting out contraception, that obviously also leads to more pregnancy. But then you're also not allowed an abortion.
Yeah.
And you're also not allowed to adopt. So, they just want a whole lot of kids that aren't wanted.
Yeah.
Living below the poverty line in abusive households.
Yeah.
Or in and out of foster care forever.
Yeah.
That's what they want. Trump is pro unwanted, poor, abused children.
Yeah. I think it's because, and I think this is like how their minds work, because they're so narrow-minded and so self-centered and selfish, that their minds go, the only people in the world are rich white people. They're the only actual people that, matter in their view. And so when they say, abstinence only, blah, 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 it's so, because in their mind they're going, then we can grow this rich white community and get more workers and blah, blah, blah. But God forbid any of those kids are LGBT plus, people of color, disabled, anything like that, because then they will kill them.
like honestly, yeah, it's this thing of like, you want these children, as long as they are this, because otherwise you don't want them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's also that thing of like having more people born into these awful households, being in and out of foster care and things, creates a higher level of crime happening, which means more people going to prison, which means more slaves, effectively. It just means they get more shit done without having to pay anyone.
I mean, that's literally what it is, because, like, the whole world, but especially in America, has just drilled in this capitalist, everyone must work and succeed and make money and fuel the higher ups in the big, this capitalist system. So they do honestly see, and it sounds terrible, but I genuinely think this is how their minds work, children as potential workers. That's all they see them as. That's
And
why
taxpayers.
they don't put any funding into schooling. That's why they don't put any funding into medical care or mental health or anything like that, and into military or into businesses or cutting tax or anything like that.
Someone
because they
pointed out to
want
me,
the
yes.
system of, we want you to think one way, we want you to act one way. If you're sick, then you should die because then you won't be able to help us. We want you to fight for us and us only. That's
Oh my god. You're right though.
yeah.
Sorry, just if you're sick, you should die because you can't help us. That was just like, oh my god, that was dark, but also, yeah. Another thing someone pointed out to me about that and like these kids being put into like foster care in these unstable homes is that it means they're more likely to be sent to like military school and then they get more soldiers.
Yeah. The US
Which again,
yeah. It's so disgusting. It's so disgusting.
they have no regard for human life outside of themselves.
Yeah.
They're like, well, I can afford to have children, so everyone else can.
Exactly. It's like,
And but
it's
like
that
the adoption thing. The adoption thing though, that's the one that gets me the most, right? Because it's like, it's this thing of like, yes, you can think like you were saying, like, I can afford to have children, we need to raise more workers, but denying people of adopting them implies that they don't want those people to be upper class, because upper class gay people want to adopt people too, adopt children. And they're like,
but they're
no,
gay.
you can't do that. We want these children to stay below the poverty line.
yeah.
And they mask it as this, like, people need a mother and a father, but it's stupid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, if they grow up in a accepting gay household, then they might think that being okay, it's okay to be gay. They might think that, and that's wrong in their opinion. They might be comfortable in their sexuality and actually be decent human beings.
But don't worry. Trump supports the gays. Which is, why he's just passed a bill where medical care can turn away LGBTQI plus people.
During
Because
a
he loves the
global
gays.
pandemic.
He loves the gays. So if an LGBT plus person has coronavirus, they're allowed to not treat them.
Yeah.
Just cause.
Just cause.
And that not only is that awful and like giving a death sentence to someone just for their sexuality, but it's also increasing the chance of other people catching coronavirus, including you, Mr. Trump. You are increasing your chances of getting coronavirus and dying.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I won't complain, and I'm not American, I'm not in America, so you can't get mad at me for saying that.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're stupid.
It's
so stupid.
And like, can I just add, like you mentioned, I'm not America. I'm not American. I'm not in America. I know that a lot of people, you get this comment all the time. Oh, if you're not American or if you don't live in the USA, you can't comment on this stuff. But like, we have empathy.
I care about people outside of where I am. Believe it or not, I think all people are equal despite where they live.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, right? Like, I'll talk about other countries. Like, you talk about, like, feminism and stuff, and they're like, well, if you're going to talk about, like, Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. And then I do, and they're like, you don't live there, so why are you talking about it? What do you want from me?
Yeah.
It's just, you're stupid.
Yeah.
I hate you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's No, it's really frustrating when people think that, because I mean it's going back to that mindset that they have of like, oh, the USA is the only country in the world, or you know, the foundation of that country was built on we want to be independent and only us, and you know, we are bigger and better and the greatest country in the world, and other people just want to tear us down. Like, that's kind of the foundation that their country was built on. And I'm not stating like every American thinks that way. Of course not. There are some great things that came out of the USA. But it's also so... to treat it as one of the most progressive countries in the world is just wrong. It's wrong.
Yeah, it really is.
It's so wrong.
My favorite is when they say that they're the land of the free, and it's like, you are if you look at, there's like a rating of like the freest countries in the world. The US is 56th.
Yeah. Yeah.
56th. You're all lying to yourselves. If you think your land is the free, brainwashed.
Oh.
Just absolutely brainwashed.
It's so...
I saw a TikTok sort of talking about the right and how the right are always like anti-progression and things. And someone said it's like this is like we're evolving and adapting so quickly, and the people on the right are like left behind, and they're really frustrated, which is why they're so extreme. Because they're like, no, they just haven't caught up. They evolve slowly. But isn't it funny though how all conservatives in the past have been proven wrong? Like, that's a pattern. They've all been wrong. Always. We always move past it and we're like, they were wrong. They were wrong. Everything. Every time. When are people gonna learn? They're just wrong.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. Do you know what really pisses me off? Lately, because of the Black Lives Matter movement, people have rightly and admirably tearing down Confederate statues and stuff. Which is beautiful. To see a statue of a slave owner dumping into the ocean. It's one of the most beautiful sights I've ever seen. But it's the whole thing of like, oh, you know, if we tear them down, we won't learn from history, blah, blah, blah. It's like, A, statues aren't for learning, they're for glorification. That's why they're made. You don't learn anything from a metal figure.
I was my uncle had this conversation with me. We were talking about this yesterday. And did you see what Banksy said about it?
No, I didn't.
Basically, he said that they should, like, incorporate the protests and things into the statues. So, like, keep the statues there, but also keep the graffiti on them.
Oh,
and, like, build around them and have, like, children around them, like, pointing at them or, like, laughing at them.
Yeah.
Because that's showing the evolution of the history. So it's like, they have the statue there to glorify them, right? I don't know why I did that.
Yeah.
They have the statues there to glorify them.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to show history, but they do have plaques.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you change the plaque and you, like, adapt the statue to show that they were wrong and they shouldn't be glorified, and that way it is changing it to be about history.
That's actually a really clever idea.
And it's showing that they were wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that
really, really clever idea.
I think that adapts it and shows that these people shouldn't be glorified, and that turns them into a historical thing.
Yeah. Or like, you know, when they tear the statues down and then throw them into the water or destroy them or whatever, leave the stand that they were on and write what happened there and why it's gone.
Yeah, see, I think that's what they should do, because completely removing them and pretending that no one teared them down.
Yeah.
And the reasons why, because it's kind of like, we still know that those people existed.
Yeah.
And we still learn about them.
Yeah.
If you keep that there as a reminder of, like, this is what happened and why, I feel like then that's turning it into a learning moment and why we shouldn't be glorifying those people, rather than just removing the fact that we removed them.
Yeah, exactly.
And pretending that that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because it did happen, and it's for a good reason. And
Yeah.
I think we need to remind people why we're tearing them down.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. Yeah.
I think that that's a good idea. Because just completely removing them, sort of, I feel like removing them completely is removing history in the way of not removing those people from history, but removing that we've been fighting.
Mm.
And just pretending that that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Sense.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. It's like, I feel like, and I think this is what you're trying to say, is like, it's not removing the statues and then moving on. It's like if you remove the statues and then you remove the videos of people removing the statues, or if you never
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I think I don't think they should just, I think it's just as bad to completely remove the fact that we've been removing them and fighting against that as it is to put them back to normal, because I don't want that either.
Yeah.
I think putting them back and pretending that it didn't happen, just erasing the fact that people have been ripping them down, graffitiing on them, and fighting against that.
Yeah.
I think that that's important, needs to be remembered, and wiping that out in any way, whether that be reverting back to having them there or just pretending it didn't happen, both are bad.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah.
Great, glad we're on the same page. I think they need to change the plaques as well, if they have plaques.
Oh,
Or don't
absolutely.
add a plaque and say why they're bad.
Yeah.
Say, this person was a slave owner.
Yeah.
This is why we shouldn't be glorifying them.
Yeah, it's so funny. I finished, but I was learning US history, and like my textbook was so funny because it would be like, oh, you know, this person did, I'm not going to say any names, but this person was so great and so fantastic and did all these things to fight for freedom for the country, and then in brackets it'd be like, well, owning this many slaves.
Slaves
Or
weren't
like it'd
people.
it'd be like this person marched across the country fighting the British and also destroying Native American cities on the way.
But see, because to them, they it's so stupid because they're like, white people are people, everyone else is not a person. It's just like, what the actual, how can anyone think like that?
I don't know. I really don't know.
How can you look at another human and say you are less than me? And there's that thing of like people saying, you know, well, black people they're more likely to commit crime, and it's like, okay, but suppose that's true. If black people are committing more crimes, are you really suggesting that it's in their DNA?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you have to acknowledge that there is a system there that is forcing them to commit more crime because of the way that they are raised and in the areas they are raised and the fact that they have access to less things. You can't say they're more predisposed to commit crime. You have to look at the system and ask why.
Yeah. It's like, it reminds me of this one like Reddit post where someone commented, it was like, oh, you know, I posted that Native Americans were less advanced than British people, and that's why British people took over the USA, and then everybody got mad even though that's a fact. And then it's like, okay, yes, it is a fact that they were less advanced than British people at the time, technology-wise. But you didn't say less advanced, you said they had smaller brains, which is different. And not correct.
Also, might I add to
It's
that?
like,
I think that's such a dumb thing to say. Remember, this is completely irrelevant, but I think it can. In science, we studied the brain in like year 7, and we literally learned that the size of your brain does not impact how smart you are.
yeah, I know. Yeah.
So even if they did have smaller brains, it has absolutely no impact on their intelligence at all.
Yeah.
So like if you x-rayed their brains and they were smaller, that means absolutely
Yeah.
nothing. So you're just wrong in every single form.
Yeah.
It's a dumb argument.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know.
Sorry.
It's so frustrating. Like, I know that, like, a lot of people in New Zealand make the same argument of, like, oh, Māori people were, you know, less advanced or blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, the British were just cruel and the Māori weren't prepared for someone to be so fucking cruel.
Yeah, it's just so...
It's like the Māori...
And even so, you can't use that as an
I know.
excuse. It's like they were less advanced, so we murdered
Yeah,
them.
exactly.
Shut the fuck up.
It's like, the whole thing with the Māori, it's just like, they had no concept of, like, owning land. Because, you know, they had, like, fights between tribes and stuff like that. But the whole concept of, like, people owning land, it wasn't something that they did. It wasn't in their culture. And then British people came over and were like, oh, I own this piece, and therefore I own you. And Māori were like, excuse me, and then they were all dead before they could actually argue.
I had someone comment today. I had someone comment on one of my posts today and basically said, he's like, give me one example of a society a society that works without capitalism. I'm like, every single indigenous culture before colonization. And he was like, name one society. And I'm like, I just told you. Colonizers brought in capitalism and everyone functioned completely fine before that. Better than fine. So shut up. And regardless, like, we say eat the rich, and that doesn't necessarily mean end capitalism. Although that's great, the bare minimum of what we want is to disperse the wealth, close the gap.
It's like,
we've got people are richer than ever and people are poorer than ever. What we want mainly is, well, yes, down with capitalism, but the bare minimum, take money off the rich, give it to the poor.
I think the most anger I've ever felt was when someone was named the first trillionaire. I can't describe the anger in my body that someone...
He's on his way to being the he's not a trillionaire yet, I don't think. He's on his way to being it.
But he's very close to it. Which just, the fact that someone can be almost the world's first trillionaire during a global pandemic where 40 million people in the US have lost their jobs, where people are...
That's a lot of people, holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay, carry on, sorry.
Where thousands and thousands of people are starving and dying and because they can't get enough money. And then fucking Trump administration can be like, oh, you know, we'll tax the poor. Just, it angers me so much that literally the 1% can fix almost every problem on the planet if they weren't selfish.
Literally, I think they said, like, you have $1 trillion, you could donate $500 million, $500 billion, and still be richer than most people will ever be in 10 lifetimes.
Yeah.
Do you know how much $500 billion would fix?
Yeah. If you donated, to put this in perspective, if he donated $500 billion, he would still have $500 billion.
When we were kids, the richest person alive was Bill Gates, and he had $52 billion, which was a lot of money. That was a lot of money. And now they've got, like, 10 times that. There are 27,000 billionaires. That's like multiple billions. If every single billionaire gave $1 billion, the entire world could just
Yeah.
be balanced.
And this is coming from someone who has counted out 1.5 million buttons. I know how big that number is. I've seen that in a physical form. It is a lot. So even if you were a millionaire, you would have more money than you would ever need. It's greed.
It makes me so mad.
It makes me furious.
Just like, as your money sits there and accumulates and gets more and more, how about just stop, and all the money that you accumulate from now, donate. Just every cent you earn from your money sitting in the bank, give it to someone else. It's serving you no purpose, just sitting on money.
And
it's
like,
gross. It's so
like
gross.
The argument of like, oh, they worked hard for it. No, they didn't. I promise you, no one can work that hard. It's not possible. What they did was they worked hard for a couple of years to make a business, and then they hired people for less than the amount that they deserve, and they exploited people, and they just created a chain link events where they used people for their own gain to accumulate that wealth. That's not working hard for it.
And
that's making other people work hard for you.
And they still pay people like minimum wage.
Yeah.
Just what the why? Why do you need why? Just why?
Because they're
it's
selfish,
so stupid,
and they don't have any concept of people.
Oh, you're right.
Eat the rich.
I love these earrings.
They're so brilliant.
I love them. They're my... they're a knife and fork. They say eat the rich. And I think that that's beautiful. Anyway. It's just... And did you know that there are more CEOs named John than there are women CEOs? There are more CEOs named John than there are women CEOs. And then men have the audacity to say men work harder.
I'm so angry. I'm so angry. Holy shit.
You just like, and female CEOs are, they're more likely to be fired. I thought CEOs meant they were at the top, but apparently...
Oh, they are at the top, but they have to have a board, and the board can kick them out.
Gotcha. Female CEOs are more likely to be fired, even if they are doing a good job. That's a fun fact for you too. I was researching this, and of the Fortune 500 companies, 13 CEOs are women. But women don't want high-paying jobs. Women don't work hard enough, Kat. They just don't. They don't work
also
hard.
Just to add on with like the whole women's? I know this isn't what we've gone past our point that we started with so far.
We're so off topic.
Yeah.
But don't worry. Keep going.
Women CEOs, like the fact that like a portrayal in media always 100% of the time portrays women CEOs as just assholes.
Yeah.
Like somehow, for some reason, women CEOs cannot be people. They have to be...
They're always the villain. They're always the villain.
They have to have toxic masculinity.
That's true. I've never seen a feminine CEO represented.
They have to
Ever.
have toxic, not just masculinity, they have to have toxic masculinity inside themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me so mad.
You have to be masculine in order to be powerful. And it's a terrible, that's
Oh,
not true.
no,
That's
no,
not
yeah,
me
yeah.
saying it. It's what is represented. And it's just, and yet there are people out there who say that that's not true.
It's because, do you know why
And
they say that's not true? It's because it's all around the world, media, everything, but especially America, it breeds this culture of, oh, you know, maybe you one day could be lucky enough to be a billionaire. It's like it feeds off of their pain in order to breed this.
Mm-hmm.
If you work hard enough, you can be a billionaire, but you can't. You know?
And the idea that like masculinity is power and femininity isn't is just so awful. I've had the amount of like men that I get saying that like feminists are encouraging masculinity and want to eliminate femininity. I'm like, no, what we want to do is encourage femininity being seen as just as strong and just as valid. I want to see, because feminine women are much less likely to be promoted,
to be respected,
just anyone showing any
to be
femininity.
respected.
Yeah, if you're feminine, you're less likely to be respected. You have to show more masculine traits in order to have your voice heard and in order to find your way through the business world. And the fact that people say men work harder, no. It's that men are more respected and they'll talk over women and they'll interrupt women and they'll steal their ideas. And there's like a study showing that like, even if women work harder and are more qualified, they are less likely to be assertive and ask for promotions because they're like afraid, and we're raised to be complicit and quiet. And women are less likely to talk themselves up because we're told that we're not allowed to do that.
As like a...
And it's so heavily ingrained in us.
As like a personal story, I remember my mother, she's hugely qualified. She's the smartest and most hardworking person I know. And she was a principal of a school. And she was told she was the best principal they've ever had, right? That she did so much. She helped establish a high school when it was originally just a primary school. Now it's a primary school and high school. She built it up. It was the highest enrollment they've ever had. And when she left to move to another job, they were finding, you know, someone to take her place. And they found this white man from England. And he had, I think, about 2/3 the amount of qualifications that my mum had. And he asked and received twice her pay, a car and a house. Because he said he wouldn't take the job if they didn't give him that. And they gave him that.
The audacity!
I am.
The audacity.
And like you can you know defend that of like, oh, you know, she never asked for it. But even if she did, she wouldn't have received it. They would have gotten a man to replace her.
Yeah, like my mom's in like a really high position. She's a business manager, and yet she has men who are below her, always contradicting her and like talking over her and undermining her and like going above her head instead of like talking directly to her. And she is extremely qualified for her job and she knows what she's doing, and yet these men who are below her, like she is their boss, have the audacity to like call her bossy and like undermine her and talk over her and tell her she's wrong. And like, you know when you like say something like mansplain, and she'll say something and they'll like twist her words and make it seem like
Yeah.
it was their idea and take credit and things like that.
There's
And
actually, yeah.
it's this like,
There's this. Sorry, I'm talking a lot.
Sorry. No, do not worry.
There's actually this Barbie. Barbie makes YouTube vlogs, and they basically just film. All they do is they film the voice actress who plays Barbie. They just film her talking about a subject, and then they motion capture over it. So it's just her talking about things on her mind.
Amazing.
And she has this one thing of like, her and her friend, Barbie and her friend, were talking in a group, and it was Barbie, Ken, and her friend. And every time Barbie would say something, the rest of the group would ignore it. And then Ken would, go, oh, like Barbie said, this is the idea. And they praise it as Ken's idea. And Barbie was just talking about how, that's a thing, like, sometimes, and we've discussed this before, it really, really hurts that we have to cater to men in order to progress. Like, it really hurts when we have to say something, and then we have to get a man to say it exactly word for word, exactly the same thing, but just because he's a man, it is hurt. Like, it hurts. It actually is painful.
And then and then all these men are like, women are treated equally and things. It's like, that's because you aren't aware that this is happening. You are probably one of those people who mansplain, who interrupt, who talk over, who steal ideas. And you're just unaware of it happening. Like, I saw this video of this like uni professor who was told that this sort of thing happens, and he was like, no, not in my classroom, that doesn't happen. And then he started paying attention after he was aware of it, and he's like, I see it all the time. It's constantly happening, and like a female student will be talking, and then a male student will interrupt, talk over her, steal her idea, and she'll just, be complicit. You aren't even aware that it's happening a lot of the time when men will like interrupt you and start talking.
Used to it.
You're just so used to it. You just expect it, and when it happens, you just kind of are like, oh, and you just let it happen. You don't say anything because you're just so used to it, and that's the problem. And that's why a lot of women are like, I'm not oppressed, and that's why a lot of men are sort of like, no, you're not oppressed, because it's just so ingrained in us to be normal that people aren't aware of it, and it's so incredibly frustrating and disheartening.
And like, I just realized I apologized for talking too much.
Yeah, you did. Oh my god, here, wait. I have, okay.
Yeah.
My friend, we were in Lao, and we were excited, and we were talking, and this man in the van, he like complained for her being too loud. She snapped. She's like, you would not say that if I was a man. And she like, the whole thing went really quiet, and she was so mad, and he was like, oh, I didn't mean it like that. And she just went off at him, like, you would not tell me that if I was a man. And then he kind of was like, yeah, you're right, I probably wouldn't. And then everyone went silent, and it was beautiful. Everyone was like slightly uncomfortable, but it was amazing. It was amazing. Ah, so good. It was so good. She was right. She was right. He wouldn't say she was too loud or she talked too much. If she was a man, that would not have happened. I just thought it was beautiful. I just wanted to share that because that was an amazing moment. And we need to, I guess, start being aware. It's scary standing up for something like that, because they belittle you and they tell you you're making it up. They get into your head and they make you feel like you're overreacting and you're exaggerating. And as someone with like severe anxiety, I always get really, really worried about that. And I'm like, am I making it up? I'm not.
Yeah.
But I get confused.
Yeah. I know that every single time I have to like defend myself or someone, like, I get like every single time I know that I am in the right, but I don't have the courage to say that I'm in the right or defend myself, I start shaking. Like, it's terrifying to stand up for the ability to speak. And I could be wrong with this, but I don't think men experience that.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the time, no.
Yeah.
Not to the same degree.
No.
Because there's also the like, there is that acknowledgement, like, we are aware that men are biologically usually stronger than we are and taller than us.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is that actual genuine fear. They're also more aggressive and violent, just like biologically.
Mm.
And there is that fear that if they can make you feel small and you don't always know what the outcome is going to be, and you're aware that this person who is bigger than you physically and stronger than you physically, standing up against them can be quite scary.
Yeah.
And whereas other men, they both have that like power sort of thing where it's usually aggressive both ways.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
but again,
it's
we're
like,
also trained to be quiet, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's
it's like, it's interesting how, you know, and you hear this a lot as like jokes of like, you know, men will usually, and this is toxic thinking, I'm not saying that, you know, all men do this or blah blah blah. When we say men, we usually, I hate that I have to say this, but it's usually like
I feel like there aren't many men watching this.
Huh? Yeah, true.
There won't be any men at this
Yeah.
point of our podcast. They will have clicked off long ago.
That's true. Yeah, but usually you hear it joked a lot of like, you know, they'll usually settle it in like fights or stuff, or like dominance. Whereas women take the L. I don't.
There's more compassion and
Yeah.
understanding. And it is that whole thing of like toxic masculinity drives it, right? Where
Yeah.
it's this thing you have to prove that you're stronger and that you're the biggest and you're the best.
Yeah.
And like showing any sort of vulnerability or compassion is not manly enough, so it doesn't help you with this power complex that you have and that you need to fill.
Yeah. Or, I mean, like, my mom said this to me the other day. It's like, when you're in a position of power, specifically, she said, when you're a woman in a position of power, you have to learn how to compromise. You have to. Otherwise, you will be torn down from your very shreds. And the fact...
Which is why a lot of female CEOs are fired over male CEOs.
Yeah. Yeah. Because...
Continue.
Yeah, we are trained, and we have to get anywhere in life, compromise on everything. Everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like you have to cater to men in order to, like you said, build yourself up. And once you're up and you are sort of at the top, if men are like yelling at you and telling you have to do this thing, you have to eventually comply, because overall they get listened to and respected more, and they are able to generally like overpower you even if they are below you in social rankings.
Yeah.
Because again, there are more of them in higher up positions.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why, you know, Donald Trump is able to do all this shit, because he is a man surrounded by men.
Yeah.
And they all have this crazy power complex.
Yeah.
And are having a who has the biggest dick contest.
Yeah.
At all times.
Yeah.
It's so...
Yeah. Which is why we have to keep talking about it to each other.
Yeah.
We have to, and I hope that this in some way was validating to know that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's always good when you have an experience where you feel like you've been undermined by a man, because sometimes it's hard to tell. Like, what me and Kat do is if I'm frustrated and mad about something, I'll come to Kat and I'm like, is it valid for me? I'm like really upset about this. Is that valid? And she's like, that pisses me off. I'm like, okay, great. This is something that needs to be talked about, because like I said, it's really easy for you to question yourself because we're it's so normal and ingrained in us that like sometimes we're unaware of it. And talking about it and understanding that is like not an okay thing is easier from like an outside perspective than it is from an inside perspective.
Definitely. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So I encourage you that if you have a friend, do discuss this, be open about, hey, this is the situation I'm in. I'm upset about it. Is that valid? How can I think about this? How do you think about this? Because it is, especially if you talk to if you're a woman and you talk to another woman, especially if it goes like that, you do see that you are valid, and it makes you just that slightest bit more confident and makes that speaking out against mistreatment just slightly more easier. So I highly encourage you do that. Or even if like you go into a anonymous public forum. Do you know what I've seen people do that I find really interesting? If they go into an anonymous public forum and do not put your gender inside the situation, then you can see a more concrete, then you get, then you get men going, so as a man, and I think you're another man, this is how I would deal with it.
That is interesting. Yeah, that's actually such a good sort of like experiment thing to like try and see. Yeah. It's like that thing they did like with babies. They like they dress the babies in like the girl babies in blue and the boy babies in pink and watch how differently they're interacted with. Which I think is such an interesting study. Yeah. Also, this is like kind of off topic, but I just sort of it's off topic and on topic. But it kind of came into my brain, and I just wanted to like mention when women wear suits, it's a power move. So which I admire women who wear suits, but the fact that it's like, you dress masculine, power move. Yeah. Why can't I be powerful in a dress? Yeah. It's like, on television, again, women CEOs are usually in a suit. Pantsuits.
Yeah. Or unless it's a romantic scene, and then they're in a dress.
But then they're the submissive one in that situation. Yeah, too. Show me powerful women in dresses. Yeah. And not just like form-fitting dresses. No. Like, show me a powerful woman in a pink floaty dress.
Yeah. I want to see like spring dresses and floaty, fun colors. Why do people judge people's status on clothing? I never understand that. It's capitalism again.
It's what my friend likes to say is it's this thing of like, men are no longer allowed to legally suppress us, so they do it subliminally through clothing, through beauty products, through diets, and that's just a new form of being able to control and manipulate women.
Absolutely.
And so that's sort of why, because it's what's catered to us and what's advertised to us and what we're taught is that like this equals this, this equals this, women do this, and it's this really fucked up interesting thing. And people say like, women are included in that. And I'm like, yeah, but remember that the CEOs of all of these companies and who do the marketing and things are men. Yeah. Yeah. And women are involved in that, yes, but only because, that's sort of what... it's a cycle because we've been taught this. And so women enforce it as well because it's what they believe is normal too. Yeah. Yeah. It's just incredibly frustrating.
It is. On that note, we should probably close it up.
Yeah, we've been talking. We could keep talking for like 5 more hours.
We could.
Once we finish this, once we finish filming, we're probably going to continue talking about this for the rest of the day.
Yeah, she's not wrong.
Okay, and that brings us to the charity of the day.
Yes.
The topic of this went slightly off, so it is an LGBT charity and not a women's charity.
Yeah.
Because it was meant to be LGBT plus focused, but we got a little bit sidetracked.
Just a little bit.
But basically, I don't know if you're aware of what's happening in Poland at the moment, but there's a lot of shit happening in Poland at the moment they are criminalizing abortion of all sorts, even if it's putting the mother in danger. They are criminalizing sex education, and if you are caught teaching sex education, you can face 3 years in prison for pedophilia. And they are also like making being LGBT plus illegal, and there are LGBT free zones in Poland. And the reason they are criminalizing sex education is also an LGBT issue, because they think the people who advocate the most for sex education are LGBT people, and so they have the association. They're like, LGBT people are pedophiles, and so sex education is pedophilia. It's this big, weird, messy thing. But it all stems from homophobia, is effectively what I'm getting at. And so the charity that we have chosen today is called PTPA, which is the Polish Society of Anti-Discrimination Law. And they are law practitioners, policy experts, and academics looking to improve anti-discrimination legislations, carry out litigation, and provide legal guidance, education, and monitoring states' performance when it comes to discrimination against the LGBT people. And I think that is really important for them at the moment. I'm going to be doing a whole video on Poland and what's happening there in a couple weeks. If you're interested in that, my channel link will be in the description. But it's just such a mess there at the moment, and they could really use your help. Find some petitions and things too. We can link some petitions in the description.
Yeah.
Because they need help and they need awareness so much right now.
Yeah. So please check that out and support them. Please.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything is fine.
Yeah. On that note, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was a little bit validating.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for coming and getting angry with
Yeah.
us. Stay safe.
Yeah.
Eat the rich.
Yes.
Be gay, do crime.
Yes.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.